Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome back to the Al-Muminat Podcast. Today we'll be covering the first part of Surat Al-Baqarah with Sister Shahd Smadi. Here's Sister Shahd.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Let's just start with a small dua. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. May Allah inshallah bless everybody who is hearing me, and may Allah make me able to deliver this message in the best way possible. We are starting today with one of the dearest surahs to my heart. It is the second surah in the Quran, and truly has so many lessons that we can learn from. It tells so many important stories that are very, very essential to our deen, to our doctrine. It could really help you in your everyday life. There's so much barakah in Surat Al-Baqarah, and you can tell from how much Muslims love this surah that whenever they are going through a hardship, or whenever they're going through some tough times, Surat Al-Baqarah is really just a shoulder to lean on, and I really, really emphasize keeping the surah in your heart, trying your best to memorize it, trying your best to understand it, and just doing your best to have it on, even when you're like just working around in the house, or in your car on your way to work. Just in general, listening to it, understanding it will really put so much barakah in your life. So we are very, very lucky indeed to be chosen to be one of the people who are able to be part of this podcast, and to be able to understand it better, and to get the opportunity to, inshallah, do our best to deliver this tafsir in the best way possible. So let's just start with a short recitation of Surat Al-Baqarah, or the beginning of Surat Al-Baqarah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألف لام ميم ذالون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون.
In the name of God, the most compassionate, most merciful. Qualities of the believers. Alif Lam Mim. This is the book, there is no doubt about it. A guide for those who are mindful of God, who believe in the unseen, establish prayer, and donate from what we have provided for them, and who believe in what has been revealed to you, O Prophet, and what has been revealed before you, and have sure faith in the hereafter. It is they who are truly guided by their Lord, and it is they who will be successful.
Okay, Jazkallahkheir. So let's start with the beginning of the surah, Alif Lam Mim. We see these letters all around the Quran. We have so many people who are out there trying to kind of make meaning of them, trying to understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may have meant with these letters. However, to the best of our knowledge, there is no meaning to these letters that we know of. There is, of course, a miracle behind them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only knows. But we try to our best of our ability to kind of understand what they mean. But as mentioned, I don't, not personally, but no one has been able to kind of come up with a meaning for these letters. They are just miracles from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين. This is the book about which there is no doubt, a guidance for those who are conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the Quran. This is the beginning of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the beginning of Al-Quran. If you notice at the beginning of any book that you are reading, usually people apologize for any grammatical errors, any mistakes that may be in the book as you are reading. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts this book by showing us that there is no doubt that there is nothing wrong with this book. There are no mistakes in this book. There are no lies, and this is a book that is completely filled with guidance and light for all of those who are willing to read it and we're willing to put in the effort to understand it. And inshallah, we are among those people. There is so much barakah and so many blessings in trying to understand the Quran in general, but I am speaking now to those whose first language is not Arabic, but they're making double the efforts to kind of understand this Quran, inshallah, in every letter that you learn and in every verse that you are trying to understand. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you so much barakah, so much blessings, and so many hasanat and good deeds. This book, or the Quran, there is no doubt that it has so much guidance for the muttaqeen, the pious people or the righteous people, the people who are afraid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who carry out every action in their day, kind of having that in the back of their mind, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching them, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of everything that they are doing, having taqwa, which is not only fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but fear of anything that might upset Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that might make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala displeased with you. And I think taqwa is a very important base in our religion, so it's very interesting to see it as one of the first ways Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes righteous people as like al-muttaqeen, people who are really aware of what they do, how it can be perceived by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and just making sure that everything that they do is filled with good intentions, and that's how inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees us. الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون. Allah talks about those who believe in the unseen, establish prayer, and spend everything that they are provided, or from what they are provided, to the people who are needy or in need. This is another way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing those muttaqeen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us one of them. He describes them as people who believe in that which is unseen, and I think this could take us back to the first believers in Islam, Abu Bakr, Khadija radiallahu anha. Those are the first muttaqeen that we know of, people who believed in the unseen when nobody around them really encouraged it. We are lucky now to have a community and have people around us that really encourage you to see al-haq, to try your best to go and pray. You can see that in the Taraweeh during Ramadan, like everybody's encouraging everybody to go pray. But if you go back to the beginning of Islam, the muttaqeen back then truly, or like the first two at least, Khadija and Abu Bakr, are really the ones who built this. And I like to go back to the beginning just because we are starting with the first surah in the Quran, so it's nice to kind of put a base of also people who started with Islam, or started spreading the da'wah with the Prophet ﷺ. So first of all, in order to be one of the muttaqeen, you have to believe in the unseen. And this has to do with the doctrine of Islam, believing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our ilah, our God, believing in the Prophet ﷺ, believing in angels, believing in the Day of Judgment. All of those are things that are unseen, things that you can't really touch or see or speak to, and it really requires a tremendous amount of faith to believe in that, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts with the muttaqeen in Surat Al-Baqarah. Also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about salah at the beginning. So this we can kind of relate to the pillars of Islam. First pillar is shahada. You believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only God and that the Prophet ﷺ is his messenger. And then the second thing is as-salah. I cannot emphasize this enough, but no matter what you have done in your life or what you are doing in your life, salah comes first. So even if you believe yourself to be a great sinner, you've done things in your life that you don't feel like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to forgive you for, no matter what kind of thought process you are going through that's making you think that even if you pray, like nothing's going to change, salah is incredibly important. It is the difference between a believer and a non-believer, as the Prophet ﷺ has said. The only thing that we have that distinguishes a Muslim from a non-Muslim is salah. It is the connection between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even if you are sinning, keep that connection going. If you missed a prayer, go back, try to pray the next one, make it up. Don't let go of salah no matter what is going on in your life and no matter how badly you think you've done. That I just wanted to emphasize that because it is so important and it's so essential to our deen, and it gets better with time. Like you can start with 2 salahs and then 3 and then 4 and then 5 and then you're doing nafilas and you're doing sunnah, and it really gets better with time. So just keep that in your mind, that salah is one of the first things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran when he mentions al-muttaqeen. And then the third thing is spending from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided us with. And this is not only money. I know that some of us may not be really where we would want to be financially. However, spending your time, so for example, volunteering at a masjid or volunteering at a hospital, putting your time out there is also part of spending. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you, for example, health. Use that health to help other people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you money, even $1. Try to give zakah, try to help your parents, try to give charity to whoever you can. So charity does not include only money. It can be time as well. It can be health. It could be your knowledge, your abilities. So always make sure that you are trying your best to give back with whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you an abundance in. وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِن قَبْلِكَ وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. And another part of being a muttaqi or a muttaqiyah is believing in what has been revealed to the Prophet ﷺ and what was revealed before the Prophet ﷺ, and they also, those muttaqeen, believe in the hereafter or the Day of Judgment. So in order to be a true believer or a true pious person, you have to believe in what the Prophet ﷺ has come with. But that does not only include Al-Quran and Sunnah. It also includes any things that you are not exactly comfortable with. I hear a lot of people asking, well, why was this revealed? Why do we have to do this? And why do we have to do that? Part of belief is taslim, just knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, and there's a reason for everything. So for example, some people ask, like, why 5 times a day? Why fast for a full month? And there are people who come up with different interpretations as to why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did this, like what was the wisdom or the hikmah behind it. And sometimes that is not revealed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't really want us to know. And part of believing in what the Prophet ﷺ has come with is to have taslim, to just be 100% sure that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what works best for us as human beings, what works best for us as Muslims, what works best for men, what works best for women. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, and that's just part of the belief process that you have to have in your heart. Also, believing in what was revealed to the what was revealed before the Prophet ﷺ had come. This includes the different books that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent with other prophets like Musa, like Isa. And then the last thing that the muttaqeen believe in is the hereafter, or the day of judgment. And that is part of believing in the unseen. So you believe in something that you have not seen. You don't really have, it's not really tangible. You can't see it, you can't touch it. But you believe in it because you believe in what the Prophet ﷺ has come with. This includes resurrection. This includes being judged by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our good and bad deeds. This includes believing in Jannah, believing in Jahannam. All of those things are part of being a true mu'min, true believer. And just to keep in mind, belief or iman is not steady. So when you're going through life, you're going to have ups and you're going to have downs. And you're going to sometimes feel like, oh my gosh, like I feel so much iman that I can almost see Jannah right now. And sometimes you have very, very low iman. And I think the thing that gets you through that period is salah. That is the connection. Once you kind of cut that off, there's nothing connecting you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how are you supposed to get through that period? So even when you feel like your iman is at its lowest, continue to pray, continue to do salah, no matter how little you are doing that. Those that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were, who he was describing, al-muttaqeen, he says, أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَىٰ هُدًى مِّن رَبِّهِمْ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Those are really guided by their Lord, and those are the successful people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you kind of step by step on how to be successful in life. We have so many books out there that are like how to become a millionaire, how to be successful, how to be happy, how to... Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you this within the first 5 verses in Surat Al-Baqarah. He tells you to believe, he tells you to pray, he tells you to give back, and then he tells you to kind of have taslim in everything that the Prophet ﷺ has come with. And that is your recipe for success. That is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in place for you to be successful in life. If you think about it, you always have a goal in life. And when you don't, you kind of feel a little lost. And I feel like when we forget that this is the ultimate goal, that being guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and going to Jannah inshallah one day, that is the ultimate goal. Every time we forget that, we feel lost. We feel like we don't really have an end point. We kind of get distracted by the things that we see on the road to Jannah, which is like um, jealousy, especially now with social media. We are so we're likely to be misguided, and by misguided I mean like we kind of leave the road for a little bit because we're not really sure that that's what we want, because we're not remembering that this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us, and that is to be on the straight path. So it is important to kind of keep your eyes on the goal, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us here what our goal has to be. And that is, inshallah, to be successful not only in this dunya but in the akhirah as well. Okay. Let's see. We can. Okay. So inshallah, we will continue. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الذين كفروا سواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم ومن الناس من يقول آمنا بالله وباليوم الآخر وما هم بمؤمنين يخادعون الله والذين آمنوا وما يخدعون إلا أنفسهم وما يشعرون في قلوبهم مرض فزادهم الله مرضا ولهم عذاب أليم بما كانوا يكذبون وإذا قيل لهم لا تفسدوا في الأرض قالوا إنما نحن مصلحون.
On qualities of the disbelievers, as for those who persist in disbelief, it is the same whether you warn them or not. They will never believe. God has sealed their hearts and their hearing, and their sight is covered. They will suffer a tremendous punishment. As for qualities of the hypocrites, and there are some who say, we believe in God and the last day, yet they are not true believers. They seek to deceive God and the believers, yet they only deceive themselves, but they fail to perceive it. There is sickness in their hearts, and God only lets their sickness increase. They will suffer a painful punishment for their lies. When they are told, do not spread corruption in the land, they reply, we are only peacemakers.
Okay, Jazkallahkheir. So we spoke about the qualities of believers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kind of gives us a step-by-step how to be successful in life, what you have to look out for if you want to be a believer, and just how to be a good mu'min in general, or a mu'mina in our case. So let's start with the beginning of what is the opposite of that. So if you are a disbeliever, how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describe you in the Quran? And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us believers, and may Allah keep us on the straight path. ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم. إن الذين كفروا سواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is talking about those who disbelieve. Indeed, those who disbelieve, it is the same for them, whether you warn them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kind of tells us here to disbelieve in what they already have proof of why they should, but they choose not to see that. So regardless of what they are told, their belief is not going to change. And unfortunately, there are many people in our life, perhaps our parents, our siblings, our friends, that we really want to believe, or we really want them to pray, we really want them to just kind of come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they don't. It's just not something that they are willing to do. And the people who are meant to be guided are the ones that will be, and the people who are not will not be guided. And that is whether you warn them or not. So whether you put in the effort to try to make them believe, they still won't. Whether you give them all of the evidence that they should believe, why Islam is like right, why Islam is true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just hasn't written that for them. And it is important to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows whether or not they will believe. However, they have the choice of belief. So this is mentioned in the next ayah. ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that those people have a seal upon their hearts and upon their hearing, and upon their vision, and for them there is a great punishment on their vision. They can never see the truth after that. You'll find that those people, you could like show them a beautiful recitation and a very interest in hearing you. It's right in front of hearts as well. They're too blind to see the truth, and this is because they followed the steps of shaitan, and shaitan really for them to return to Allah. And this way, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kind of sealed their fate before they make a decision. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always gives us the ability. We have free will, so you have the ability to either take what's right or take what's wrong, but there are consequences to each, of course. So once they have made their decision that they don't want to listen, they don't want to be believers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a consequence seals their fate as non-believers. And for this disobedience, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises a great punishment. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us and make us as far believers. And these people are the munafiqeen, or the hypocrites. So the first people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described is the non-believers. And now we're going to be speaking about the hypocrites, or the people who say what they do not mean. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about those who show what they do not have in their hearts. Their demeanor and their actions do not match what is in their hearts and their minds. This is a very dangerous group of people who unfortunately were around at the time of the Prophet in the Medina. Of course, they're still around today, but here we can kind of relate to the people who were there at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. One of the biggest munafiqeen, or one of the biggest hypocrites, was Abdullah bin Salul. He used to show that he was a believer, but he would cause chaos whenever he could. He tried his best to make sure that the Muslims don't win in, for example, battles. For example, on the day of Uhud, which is a very important battle for Muslims, Abdullah went back with a third of the Muslim army and caused great damages for Muslims. He would show that he was a believer. He would show that he was a great person, that he's helping the Muslims, but he used to stab them in their back. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made sure that the Prophet ﷺ knew about that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warns us to be careful of these people, as they can cause you to have a disease in your heart, and you could become similar to them or fall victim to their devious behaviors. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be strong mu'mins. Al-Mu'min al-Qawi khayrun wa habbu ilallahi min al-Mu'min al-Da'if. A strong believer is closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and more dear to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than a weak believer. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be kind, wants us to have great hearts, but at the same time, He wants us to be smart and clever, to know that there are some munafiqeen out there. There are some hypocrites who might misguide you, who might make you do things that are displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is especially important in friendships. You can have a friend, they'll show you that like they are not perfect Muslims, but they will show you that they do things for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then you have to be very clever about whether that person has good intentions or not, because you don't want to fall victim to like any behaviors that might misguide you in specific. You don't want somebody who makes you do things that you don't really believe are right or would please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's how you can be a strong mu'min, a strong mu'mina, a good believer, a good Muslim. And so just remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warns us about munafiqeen in the Quran, so be careful not to fall victim to any of their behaviors. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then says, يخادعون الله والذين آمنوا وما يخدعون إلا أنفسهم وما يشعرون. They think that they deceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and those who believe, but they deceive no one except themselves. And they do not perceive it. They don't see that their actions are very obvious. And that is people who do this, the munafiqeen, they think that they are deceiving Allah. They think that they're deceiving the people who follow the Prophet. However, they're only really harming and deceiving themselves, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is well aware of their actions and their intentions. And true believers are really good at finding out whether the person in front of them is a munafiq or not. They don't really fall for the act very easily. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows that those people show that they are doing good deeds in front of people. They pretend to pray, they pretend to do charity, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge them based on what's in their hearts. So all of their doing on the Day of Judgment means nothing if what's in their heart is pure sickness. And they think that they have won in life, but that is not true, as they have not worked on their hearts and the purification of their intentions, which is the basis of this deen. So the munafiqeen truly lose both in the dunya, because they're not being true to themselves. They're showing something that they don't believe in. They're acting in a way that does not resemble what's on the inside of them. And on the other hand, on the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge them based on what was in their hearts. So they will basically lose both dunya and akhirah, both the life here and in the hereafter. في قلوبهم مرض فزادهم الله مرضا ولهم عذاب أليم بما كانوا يكذبون. In their hearts there is a disease, so Allah has increased their disease, and for them there is a painful punishment because they are habitual liars. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that the reason these hypocrites are like this is because they are sick. Hypocrisy is a disease. It is not normal to act differently to what you internally believe. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increases their dalal, or disobedience, and sickness. And the Prophet says, يَكْذِبُ الْمَرْءُ حَتَّى يُكْتَبَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ كِذَّابًا. You lie until you are written as a liar by Allah. The more you lie to yourself and others about your character, your intentions, and who you are, the more you become an actual liar in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the biggest things that hypocrites do is lying. Not only do they lie with their words, but they're lying to themselves, as we've mentioned. They're pretending to be someone that they're not. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. On the Day of Judgment, neither wealth nor sons will benefit. However, whoever comes to Allah with a qalb salim, or a pure heart. So only a person who has a pure heart will benefit on the Day of Judgment. And that's why we constantly ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us a pure heart, one that has no jealousy, no doubt, no hatred. It is so important to go to sleep every night without having a tiny bit of hatred or envy towards anyone. That is the goal in life, to have a pure heart, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing you and telling us that on the Day of Judgment, none of it will matter if your intentions were bad, if your heart was sick. Especially now with all that we have around us with from temptations. For example, like you're scrolling on Instagram and you see someone who looks a certain way or acts a certain way, and you have jealousy or envy. Be very careful with that, because that's just like a tiny dot on your heart. And if you imagine like how many times you might have jealousy or envy or hatred towards someone every single day, you're just really damaging your heart. And health is not only what we see on the monitor at the hospital. Health is really how you feel every single day about people. And if you feel like that jealousy and envy and hatred is getting to a point where you can't deal with it anymore, go back to the beginning of Surat Al-Baqarah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you, remember, a step-by-step. It's belief, it's salah, it's zakah. So if you feel like your heart is becoming misguided, or you feel like it's becoming a little sick or not very pure, maybe do more salah, maybe do more zakah, maybe volunteer somewhere. Just use the guide that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you at the beginning of Surat Al-Baqarah in order to make sure that you don't have the sickness in your heart, to make sure that you don't have this disease. Try your best to go to sleep every night having forgiven anybody who's ever hurt you, having removed any hatred that you have in your heart, any envy that you have in your heart. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's easier said than done. However, it is something that we really should strive for, to make sure that our hearts don't become ill and don't have this sickness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ لَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ قَالُوا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُصْلِحُونَ. Those people, those hypocrites, when it is said to them, don't cause corruption on earth, they say, but we are reformers. They believe that they are actually fixing the world. They believe that they are reformers. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not make us one of those people who believe that they are doing good, that believe that they are helping this world become a better place, but they're actually doing the complete opposite, and they're actually causing so much corruption, they're causing so much destruction. And this doesn't only mean like taking down trees, like corruption on earth could be you causing two families to fight, or you causing a division between two people, you stealing, you lying. That is all corruption. Any kind of sin that you do is corruption on earth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about those people who you try to help by taking them away from the damage that they are doing in this world, because they're following their own temptations, but their responses are constantly that they are trying to fix things. And I don't know, you might think of a certain show that you've watched where someone comes in between two people and causes so much corruption, but really that's truly what it is. People who act like they're fixing things and then cause more damage munafiqeen, they are hypocrites. the munafiqeen used to do this at the time of the Prophet. They would go into a problem acting like they want to solve it and create more division and corruption among people, among Muslims, among believers. So we see this all around us, unfortunately, in this day and age. So many people are causing harm to people around them with their lies, with their deception, and just genuine harm, but they act like they're not doing anything wrong. Rather, they're pretending that they're making things better. So just to kind of recap what we spoke about today, the beginning of Surat Al-Baqarah is do and don't. This is what you should be doing in life, and this is what you should be avoiding in life, and this is what you should not be doing in life. So first of all, the do's: make sure that your iman is high, or you try to keep it high, because of course we go through lows, and that is by praying, by giving zakah, by believing in everything that the Prophet ﷺ has brought, by believing in al-akhirah, and having taslim, tawakkul, knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put down all of these rulings that we have to do for a reason, that only He knows. And that is kind of your, as I said, like your step-by-step guide to success in life. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions how a person who is a disbeliever only harms themselves, and only kind of seals their own fate by making wrong decisions and making the decision to not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That kind of just seals your fate as a non-believer. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us who to kind of avoid being around and avoid being part of. And those are the munafiqeen, or the hypocrites. Those are the people who pretend to be what they are not. And He gives us a warning to not have like those diseases that these people have in their hearts, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has great punishment for those who do that. So if I will leave you with anything from today's podcast, it's to make sure to keep your salah at as close to 100% as you can. Make sure to give back, whether it is with money or time or knowledge or energy, and make sure to keep your heart as pure as you can keep it. And that is by doing exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us at the beginning of Surat Al-Baqarah. And Jazkallahkheir. May Allah bless you all. May Allah make us and make this podcast beneficial to all of us. And Assalamu alaikum.
If anyone has any last questions for our speaker today, we'll be around for the next few minutes. Yeah, just drop your question or comments in the chat.
Okay, inshallah, we're going to end this with a couple of du'as. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا شر ما قضيت إنك تقضي ولا يقضى عليك وإنه لا يذل من واليت ولا يعز من عاديت تباركت ربنا وتعاليت ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك جزاكم الله خير جميعا.
For anyone who's listening after the podcast is wrapped, you can send any questions to our Gmail. It's on the screen. It's at Al-Muminat Podcast @gmail.com. And then join us next week for a continuation of Surat Al-Baqarah with our next speaker. Jazkallahkheir.